Hey guys, welcome to another installment of The Great Divorce by C.S. Lewis. Today we'll be talking about chapters 6, 7, and 8. So the first chapter regards the intelligent man. If you remember on the bus on the way to this heavenly realm, Lewis runs into this man that he calls an intelligent looking man, and he explains his plan for going to heaven. And that is simply to find something of true reality and then using it for profit in the realm the spirits deem as hell, and we can understand it to be the hell realm. So we, in chapter 6, now get to catch up with that man. What we see first is he's doing the same thing as C.S. Lewis in an allegorical sense. They're both walking closer towards the mountain. It seems that he is dealing with the elements just as Lewis is. And remember, it's painful for the ghosts to walk on these elements for whatever reason. Some people have suggested that this is to represent life being difficult, and particularly the closer you get to the mountain, the harder it is, but the stronger your feet get. So remember that as Lewis continues to walk closer and closer towards the mountain, these people that he is interacting with are also closer and closer to the mountain. So the intellectual man, he decides to fight the elements just as Lewis is, but for two different things. As we see, Lewis is on the water, which could be a symbol for baptism, because he claims he wishes he could be in the water because it would then be more refreshing to his feet. There's some theological allegory at play there. But what we see is we have the intellectual man almost hiding and almost being a savage in these elements. He's fighting the elements. He's fighting the will in order to get what he wants. So it sees that he's in pain. He tries to go through the flowers and it pinches his thumb, and then eventually gets to what he wants. He wants specifically an apple from the tree. He tries to pick up several, and it's too heavy for him. He tries to pick up the biggest one, and again, it's too heavy. He finally, at last, finds the smallest, most insignificant apple and picks it up with all of his strength, and it causes him immense pain. What we then have is we have this waterfall angel, spirit, yell, "Fool, put it down." And it says the ghost pretends not to hear and walks back to the bus with his apple. So what is significant about that? What is the allegory at play? Well, what's interesting to note is the apple is from the tree in the heavenly realm. Is that a bad thing? Is that evil? No. The apple is inherently not evil. However, what makes this a negative connotation is the intelligent man taking something designed for one purpose, which is sustainment in the heavenly realm. The spirits having physical bodies or a spirit-like body can partake in this act of eating these apples. However, as a ghost, at this specific point, it does nothing but its immense pain. So what could Lewis be talking about is the problem with sin, or the rejection of the mountain, is not simply inherently evil things, but rather exploitation of things for personal gain that lead to evil. Lewis is trying to make the point, again, that it is not the apple that is evil, but rather exploiting or distorting something of its original intent is what causes it to be a self-destructive tendency. What's important to note is the man or the ghost is limping away back to the bus. The waterfall spirit is saying, "Put it down." Why is he saying put it down? Possibly for the most obvious reason: it will stop the pain. What C.S. Lewis is trying to say here is that it is us making these decisions to distort the truth and to distort positive things for our own personal gain that leads to our own self-destruction when we think it's benefiting us. You see, a lot of sinful things are not simply inherently evil, but rather us taking those things into our own hands for what we think is most beneficial. But in actuality, there's this spirit, this consciousness that's saying, fool, stop, continue walking forward, and then you will be able to perhaps eat the apple. So that's chapter 6. Ironically, the intelligent man is taking something and hurting himself because of it. That's not very intelligent. That's the irony in calling him the intelligent looking man. So much potential, but rather this distortion causes him a life of self-destruction. So chapter 7, this is the man called the hard-bitten ghost. What's important about this one is he has a very pessimistic outlook on life. He uses the ambiguous pronoun they are out to get you. They say that this is the good place, but it's not really that impressive. I just wanted to check it out. I'm not very impressed. Just like the hell realm, it's not that impressive. And then we see this hyperbolic irony that Lewis is trying to make in this situation where he goes, oh, well, you traveled. And he goes, yeah, I've been to the Taj Mahal, the pyramids, and it's nothing impressive. All it is the system. What C.S. Lewis is trying to show here is extreme cynicism and skepticism. When a person is extremely skeptical and extremely cynical to the point of nothing is worth it, that's when you get to this point of nothing will be good enough. And what we have here is it starts with cynicism of it's not as good as it was. Then it eventually leads to the opposite side of the spectrum of paranoia, of everyone's out to get me. They. He never addresses who in any of these situations. He argues that they are all the same. Every system is the same at its core. Every system is out there to exploit you. And so this extreme cynicism does not give any actual answers. And that's what Lewis is trying to say in this. Sure, people can believe it, but a worldview that does not give you answers isn't a worldview worth living. A worldview that's so specific on extreme skepticism to the point of rejecting everything is a worldview that leaves you with discontent and nothing. So that's what chapter 7 is regarding, is C.S. Lewis making this point of this man is close. Again, we are walking towards the mountain, but yet the extreme cynicism and the almost enjoyment of being discontent. The extreme cynicism leads to this unwillingness to accept something that's actually good. And what's important to note in how it relates to Lewis's allegorical figure is Lewis starts having those same doubts. He goes, well, maybe he's right. Maybe I'm not supposed to be here. This is painful. Maybe I should turn back just like everyone else. Why am I still going forward? So extreme cynicism has an influence on Lewis's character. This is actually the first character, one could argue, that actually influences Lewis's thoughts, and we don't know why that is. Perhaps he's saying something about his own personal life. Perhaps he's just making a thought experiment on Christian skepticism, and that it's okay to have doubts, but keep pushing forward. So now let's go to chapter 9. Chapter 8. Chapter 8 is regarding this woman. It's the first woman ghost that we really interact with at this point. And the two things that focus on here is shame and vanity. We see her interacting with this spirit who says, come to the mountain, just like they all do. And she goes, I would love to come to the mountain, but I can't come to the mountain looking this way without a body. And what she says is, it's more embarrassing to be without a body on the mountain than it is to be naked on earth. Remember, we have this idea of nakedness and vulnerability. So what she's saying is that I'm not willing to be vulnerable during these times, to be seen as less than in her own perception for the sake of gaining a body. Because what he says is, you keep walking and you will gain a body. And she goes, no, but they'll see me this way. What Lewis is trying to make the point is, if you have vanity, if you're so focused on what you don't have or what you do have, your own physical appearance, your own personal gain, you're missing the point. We saw that in other characters such as the apostate. What we also have here is extreme shame. She's shameful that she doesn't have a body to the point where she is so terrified for people to see her. And the Spirit tells her that will change the further you walk along. Vulnerability is a necessity for growth. But shame is the antithesis of growth. It's the antithesis of beneficial vulnerability. And what he says is, all of a sudden unicorns start running by, and so he doesn't get to hear the end of the conversation. Maybe we'll hear about it later. And that's where the chapter ends. So let's sum it all up. Chapter 6 was about exploitation of good things is what causes this evil. A lot of the things that people do in life are not inherently bad, but rather our choice in those regards, and our distortion of the original intent is what causes this bad act. Chapter 7, we had the hard-bitten man of extreme cynicism, and that cynicism and extreme skepticism lead to discontent and influences Lewis for the first time. And lastly, we have the woman that's full of vanity and shame. Vanity of what she once was and shame of what she is now. With that, that ends our discussion for this week, and I look forward to next week's session. Have a great weekend.